This is IGN. Keep your friends close and your enemies exiled. This is your IGN review of Frostpunk 2 by Dan Stapleton. Most sequels to successful games are safe, conservative iterations on the ideas of the original. But not here. Frostpunk 2 is a bold follow-up that takes an almost entirely different approach to its city-building strategy. It's set in the same bleak, iced-over world where people struggle to survive, but it's refreshing that we're not retreading the same frozen ground. Everything from how you place buildings to how you manage resources and heat your city is a new spin, and its political system is a creative way to interact with the people of New London that does a great job of conveying a sense of quid pro quo negotiation in a representative democracy. The zoomed-out perspective does mean that we lose a lot of the feeling of intimacy that made the first game truly stand out, but there's no shortage of morally questionable decisions to make as you're building your society. A frosty atmosphere is strong, thanks to bone-chilling weather effects and dramatic music that swells as tension in your city increases. Coming from a replay of the first Frostpunk, I was initially missing the ability to see people walking in the streets. That said, they do pop up with comments on your actions, and an announcer on the loudspeaker gives occasionally amusing remarks on current events, so it doesn't feel like a ghost town. The map itself is obviously fairly uniform because it's covered in white snow and ice, but there are features like mountains and cliffs to give each area its own look, and as you build, it becomes much more colorful thanks to intricate districts and the automatically created power lines which pulse red when tensions run high. The 5-chapter story mode serves as something of a tutorial for the Sandbox Utopia Builder mode, though aside from a few short cutscenes, there isn't a whole lot of plot driving it. There's little here beyond a direct bridge between the events of the first game and this one as you take over the city of New London, with the vast majority of the story coming in brief, affecting vignettes about life in the frozen wastes. There's a lot to cover as you learn to place and expand multi-tile districts for housing, food production, resource and fuel extraction, industry and logistics, each with its own set of upgrade buildings, plus single-tile hub buildings with adjacency bonuses. Arguably, the centerpieces of Frostpunk 2, though, are its faction and government systems. This is where you must strike a balance between opposing groups of citizens by keeping promises around how they'd like to see you run the place. You don't lose by having your colony wiped out. It would be quite a challenge to get the population down to 0. Instead, you have to worry about your people losing trust in you or the tension level rising to the point where they boot you out of office. It's all too easy for a shortage of any of the resources to send you into a downward spiral where everybody's mad at everybody else and society collapses. I can't help but feel that we've lost something important, though, in expanding from the small-scale perspective of the first game to a multi-colony big picture, one where you can only see your people when you hit a button to do a close-up to observe a handful of them milling around. For instance, seeing a message pop up that 93 children died in a mine collapse doesn't really hit the same when it soon vanishes without obvious repercussions. It was a lot easier for me to think of those kids as just stats on a spreadsheet when they never even had names that I could view in the graveyard, like I could in Frostpunk. Frostpunk 2 is just too big for that. Frostpunk 2 is always throwing decisions like that at you and then serving up consequences, often making me feel a little dirty for picking the one that gave me the boost the spreadsheet said I needed, despite the human cost. So while it might not land the punches as effectively, it certainly takes a lot of swings, and those add up. Building up multiple colonies, researching technologies, and passing laws in Frostpunk 2 is quite the act of plate spinning. Just about anything you do is bound to make one of your city's factions angry at you, and a powerful storm can literally and figuratively freeze your whole economy. This is a city-building sequel that might have lost some of the intimacy of the original by thinking bigger, but what it's gained through its ambitious philosophy of reinvention rather than iteration means you can play it immediately after the original and not feel like you've done most of this before. Frostpunk 2's IGN score? 8 out of 10. Thanks for listening to IGN. My name is Tony Jackson, and for the latest Frostpunk 2 updates, visit us at IGN.com.
Spoken Layer.